Get you a new photo.
Oh shoot. All right. We are live. Yes. We need new photos. We need to get rid of that stock photo and boom, through the magic of the internet, we switch sides. How
Yeah,
you
I
doing,
got
Ted?
hair now, and that was like 10 years ago. I look way older. By the way, I love it when people come on my Instagram and are like, "Oh, you look so old." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you. That makes me feel so warm inside." Like, you're not
Right.
following me
Well,
for my looks, right?
we hear that and interpret that as wise and experienced, I think is
There we
what they
go.
meant to say. You look so wise and experienced, Ted.
I'm an older father too, so like most of the other dads are like in their 30s, and I'm 48 now, so that's a little weird too. So I think I've got some baggage I'm bringing to the table.
When you used to babysit your son's friend's mom, probably that might be an issue.
Fair
Okay.
enough. Let's get
Yeah, we're
started.
we're we're here to
Yeah.
talk about plants. I never start this show off the good way. That's why every Tuesday you tune into the KIS Organics channel to watch the show, and then once a month you tune in over here on Chad Westport because I'm the king of openings. So what we're here to do. Thank you guys for coming back, regular viewers. You're familiar. This is a show run by you. You've got the expert and the know-it-all here. We'll let you figure out. So we're here to take your questions, guys, and we already have some good ones here. So garage grower, and we have some things to talk about ourselves too. We've got things going on in the garden, but guys, do please just type question, put them up here, and I will do my best to get them up here for everybody. Garage grower question: living soil, slowly spray the water on top or dump it all in? My experience with this, and I'm just gonna project my experience onto you, garage grower, and give this question to Tad. So, Tad, when I save my soil, I'm done with my soil, I put it out into kind of a garbage bin. I later re-amend it. And then when I go to use it, water just doesn't do the same thing as it used to. It's a little bit hydrophobic. So it just sits on top of the soil. What would you recommend to kind of correct that situation? Again, garage grower saying slowly spray it or dump a whole bunch on it. Which is going to be most effective for thoroughly saturating the soil, not just top, sides, bottom?
Yeah, I'm going to assume too it's a situation like you described and not where he has a plant in a pot. In which case, we don't necessarily need to like break out our pump sprayer or anything every time we want to water our plants, but we also don't want to just be dumping a whole bunch of volume of water at a time. That's where something like the Dram water breaker, which is a nozzle that goes on the end, it gives us higher volumes of water but lower pressure because we want the water to be dispersed without like shooting soil up into the air or like causing divots in the soil. So yeah, that's ideal for if there's a plant in there. Now, I had this situation that you just described because I shut down my grow for like 6 or 8 months and I'm just now starting it up again. So 2, 3 weeks ago, I went in there and the soil was bone dry. And so I just added a little bit of water. I went through and watered the top with the wand like I described. And the water, like you said, slowly went through. Some of it went immediately all the way through and just started to come out the bottom. But because I have beds in trays, I was totally fine with that. And I just let the water sit in there. I plugged the tray, let that water sit there. And then I came back, a few days later, week later, I don't remember. And I went through this process like 3 or 4 times because I knew I had time to do that. And then eventually the water would all soak in. Now, if you're on a shorter time scale than that and you need this to happen faster, you could use a sprayer. You could add a surfactant, which makes the water wetter or stickier, like aloe, Thermex, which is a yucca, couple drops of dish
Dawn dish
soap even.
soap? Yeah, you're
Yeah.
going on the dish soap.
Yeah. I mean,
Yep.
the amount you're adding, it's not really going to hurt your soil in those quantities. So that would be fine too. Any of those things will work. Yeah. So
Perfect.
I don't know if that answers it, but that's what I did. And I've found that seems to be a pretty effective way of doing it. But the goal is now that I have the soil up and running and then I re-amended it. Actually, this time I didn't do a soil test. I just re-amended with our nutrient pack. I'm going to do a trial with that. And now my goal is to keep that soil evenly moist moving forward. Once the soil is now accepting water, it's a good moisture level. It actually held on to more water than I want, but that's because there were no plants in there. So that's the other thing to caution people on is if you have just water sitting in a room and you're not dehumidifying that room a lot, that water is just going to kind of sit in that soil profile more than you might expect. So you want to make sure to not over soak when you're going through this process.
And that's a good argument for appropriate pot size. If people are going to be in, different pots and up potting, instead of starting maybe with that 7-gallon, start with the 1 gallon and then kind of get the soil acclimated to accepting the water. One thing that I found too when reusing the soil, and it kind of surprised me, is like I would fill my 2-gallon pot and I already have my clone in the cloner, so it's got roots, and I'm going to take it out and put it in. But the soil was reused, so a little bit dry, put it in the pot, gave it some water on the top. Now you can feel it's a little bit heavier. You've definitely added volume into that area. But what was surprising to me, and this is again a good argument for using a surfactant or something, is after I gave it a decent amount of water and the top and everything looked wet, as I dug down that hole to put my roots in, I only went down about 3 or 4 inches and everything was bone dry. So that's something that can
That's a really good point. I'm glad you brought that up. I find that because my soil is peat based in my outdoor garden, it will dry out all the way. And then when I do go to turn on the water or when I hand water, it will look soaked and I feel like I put out a lot of water. And then, like you said, you need to dig down into the soil and you'd be surprised, even right below the surface, it might be completely dry. So that's a really, really good thing that you brought that up.
Another part of that equation too, and we wonder this all the time, is Miles offshore. Always good to see you in here, buddy. He has a question. We talk a lot about sometimes soil biology, microbes, but his question is: when the soil dries out, do all of the bacteria die until you rewater, or how long does it stay alive dry? And I heard brings the term reanimation, which is an awesome cult classic movie. Reanimator, guys, go and watch it. It's horrible, but it's good. But reanimation, suspended life of these microbes, are they just gone or can they be brought back?
Yeah, there will be some microbial loss when soil completely dries out, but you have to realize that microbes have created strategies for surviving drought conditions, just evolutionarily. So some will insist, they will form a layer around themselves to protect them. And so there's a lot of ways they can make it through these drought times and recover. So when you add a food source and when you add water, these bacterial populations will explode. And so it's not really a huge concern. And if you think about it, this happens all the time outside in nature. And our soils are still very fertile and biologically active. So yeah, I don't worry about it too much.
Okay. And kind of like we're talking about leaving a pot soaked with soil with no root mass, nothing that's going to take it up for a while too, then you're going to create kind of more anaerobic microbes. So it's always kind of a steady flux. There's a balance that's going on between wet cycles and dry cycles from what I understand, and that will influence it as well. Preventing basically one kind of, aerobic or anaerobic group from overtaking the soil.
Yeah, I was talking to someone today about a project, and one of the things that we brought up was we know very little about the rhizosphere and these microbial interactions. We're learning more all the time, but we're seeing more products that are multi-species consortiums because they've discovered that a lot of times the sum of the parts is greater. Like when these things work together, there's a synergistic effect. And so we see this all the time. So I guess the point is there's a lot we don't know. There's a lot we have to learn, and there's a lot happening in terms of how all these microbes interact. That's really, really interesting. So, yeah.
Cool. Again, we know very little about what's in our soil, let alone how it acts in the soil, let alone in that very small area next to the root called the rhizosphere. So, learning all the time. It's fun. Another
Sorry, I
question.
got distracted because it said I posted the number 2 here, but I think that was you.
Oh, that was.
Okay. If you post as me when you post. That's good to know. All right.
Okay. Well, now I just actually changed it to only posting for me. So I will post a number 2 again. That is in reference to my friend Damon, who tends to think American Psycho is a Christmas movie. 1 for yes, 2 for no, 2
Ah,
for no. So yeah. So now that should post it as me just to reinforce the fact to him. Um, Here's an interesting question that I really don't have an answer to. I have an opinion on vermiculite. I don't like it for one particular reason, which is it just stays too wet too long. Haven't found a good way to balance that inside of my media. But Silokin, the question is, why do no living soil producers use vermiculite? It's available everywhere and it's not that expensive. Is it spun glass, fiberglass too, to begin with?
I thought there were issues with it back in the day with possibly asbestos. I'm speaking out of turn here because I
Okay.
haven't done a lot of research on it. We have pretty good access to pumice mines and perlite locally, so I've always used pumice.
Okay.
I don't know what the heavy metal content of vermiculite is. I don't know. I think there was some issues where if it becomes a dust, it can have some health concerns, but I
Mm,
don't totally remember off the top of my head.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd have to look
And,
into
and
it a
I'm
little bit more.
and I'm sure, it's probably a reasonably easy Google search, but it's always nice to talk with, some of the experts too. You work with a lot of larger commercial facilities, people with large beds, and sometimes even though something is an option, if you're not seeing it used or even widely used, there's probably a good reason. So in your experience, you're not really seeing many people tossing vermiculite into large beds. I haven't personally.
No, I don't know of anyone commercially using vermiculite. Um, but again, it's just not something I've looked into to really.
Okay.
I see some comments. Sounds like some people have more information than we do on that topic in the chat. So yeah,
Perfect. That's what chat's here for, man. They are
yeah.
the backup. They have answers to a lot of things. Again, everybody's got some different specialties. There's so many areas you can go when it comes to growing. And that's just such a huge umbrella term in itself. There's many things within that growing. Um, Peter's got a question here. Thanks for tuning in, Peter. Says, what does it mean when sprouts growing to the side like a 90-degree angle, mutation or virus? Couple different interpretations. Maybe you can help clear it up for us here, Peter, in chat. Because sometimes sprouts, are you talking about the seedling just came out sideways? Are you talking about sometimes the roots coming through the side of fabric pots at all kinds of angles, at all types of depths? Or, which I'm going to assume is, are you talking about branching structure? When things come up and instead of, them growing up, they're just laying straight out. I've heard anecdotally, again, there's probably always going to be exceptions to every rule, but, and I don't know if you've seen this or heard this as well, Tad, but hop latent virus, HLPVD, hop latent viroid. One of the potential clues is branches just going straight out. Weaker branches, they might want to just rip off easily, but they grow almost just straight out from the stem instead of up, which would be virus related. Are we connecting the dots where there's too much length in between for it to be many different variables, or have you seen anything like that, or have an idea of what this would be? Fresh grown sprouts, new growth. Okay, so new
Yeah.
branches.
I need to see a picture of it to know exactly what we're talking about. My initial thought
That's
was
better.
low
Yeah,
light
that makes
conditions. If you get a very leggy plant that's leaning in one direction, typically not 90 degrees, but like rather than here, yeah, like over here, it's trying to
phototropic.
get to more light. Yeah. But there is with HLVD, there is research that shows horizontal branching is a pretty common symptom
Okay.
of a high viral load. viroid load in a plant. So that is a possibility as well. Someone else I saw asked the question along those. My sprouts don't grow sideways. They fall over due to, I assume he means damping off, not damming off.
Okay.
I believe
Yeah.
that's Pythium is the most common cause of that, is the disease associated with damping off. And that's typically a pathogen in the soil itself, usually associated with overwatering. So if you can reduce your water and get fresh soil in there, you should be fine. And plants will typically outgrow that too. So you may be overwatering. What about Bob? That's the most common case for it. But get new media too. Don't reuse that soil for new seedlings, sprouts.
Yep. And maybe while it's younger, maybe work with just kind of like the shot glass and the mister, just to kind of get it going till it establishes a little bit of a root zone, and then it can uptake water more effectively through that. And again, size of the container always makes a big difference. Easier to water a 4x4 cube than a 7-gallon container for a seedling. So I usually go 1 gallons, but smaller is easier. Okay.
Man, we got a lot of questions. I thought we were going to have to I thought I was going to have to tell you guys about all the crap I'm dealing with in my grow, but there's enough questions here. We don't even have to get into it.
We'll get to it. Little Nugs had a question for you, and then Crippled Cannabis Cowboy, I can probably take that one. But Tad, this one is for you, sir. Okay. Little Nugs is asking, I need a quick release calcium product to amend with. What do you suggest?
I'd say a very fine agricultural lime. It depends, though, on what you're trying to accomplish. So if you have a low pH and you need faster release calcium, agricultural lime is a great option for that. You could also use oyster shell flour. They're both 99% calcium carbonate, I think. So either would work. But it's really about the grind itself. You want a mesh size that's as fine as possible. We want that gives us the largest amount of surface area. If you have a pH that is already in a range that you want, like let's say 6.5 to 7.2 even, and you don't want to raise the pH any further, then you could use something like gypsum and then try to find the finest mesh size of gypsum for the same reason. Now, the gypsum is not going to have quite as much solubility, I believe, as the agricultural lime, but that's a good place to start, I guess, for fast available calcium off the top of my head.
And that's one thing that I always picked up from, listening to Brandon and Brandon's conversations too, is, the size matters. The finer, the better, because there's some things that come in a variety of forms. Not all of it is equal when it comes to the quick release, which is what he's looking for. So,
yeah, well, last tonight's going to be a little slower. And I'm only speaking organics. I see, what about Bob mentions calcium nitrate? I can't speak to mineral salts, so I'm always going to answer these questions from an organic perspective. And I typically don't like dolomite, because I see someone mention dolomite, just because of the amount of magnesium coming in. And it's also going to raise your pH a lot faster than just the agricultural lime. But there are conditions where you may want to use dolomite lime if you need a little bit of magnesium as well. So, yeah.
Cool. Well, I hope that helps out. And again, it gives people different options too, and things to look at and to research further. Because we can't possibly dive in as deep as we want with all of them. But this one was probably aimed more towards me. The Crippled Cannabis Cowboy, Triple C, good to see you, says, when you're making a cross, how many generations have to go by before you can make it solid? Solid, I am going to assume, means even similar expressions. Homozygous. Yeah. And I mean, ultimately the answer is it depends. It depends on your starting material. This is where cannabis breeding and like plant breeding separate, because we talk about F1 generations and it's different things to both groups. F1 traditionally is very stable. You plant 100 seeds, 99 of them are going to look the same. My best example of that is corn. You drive by a cornfield, it can be acres and acres, and there's like this much difference in the height between acres and acres. So that is typically the goal of a breeder, is to get something reliably expressing homozygously. So it depends on your starting material. Today, most things are polyhybrid. So there's so many genetic combination potentials inside of each plant now. Whereas before, something that's maybe, you know, more F1, more stable, more solid, this is what you get. So now you've got this to deal with. So that's why the answer is going to depend. But yeah, 6 or 7 generations, you should, if you've isolated a trait that you like, you've selected through each generation for that, by the time you get to 6 or 7, you should be close to narrowing that down, getting it more consistent. Sometimes there is inbreeding depression, but then you go back to a younger generation of it. That's why it helps to keep moms and dads if you really are going to be doing a consecutive line breeding project. But yeah, 6 or 7. And again, when we think about 6 or 7 rounds and then selections, we're easily talking over 2 years right there, 2-3 years. So that's why breeding takes a while sometimes, but that should be everybody's goal. I want to plant 10 beans and get, 10 similar plants. Hopefully that helps there. I don't know. Did you have anything you wanted to add on that one, Tad?
Not a breeder. I'll leave that stuff to you guys,
Perfect.
to you. Thank you for answering that.
Perfect. Yeah. Hey, we do what we can here. Little Nugs, let's see here. There's some other good questions in here. I'm trying to find the ones that are most applicable. Kind of going back to that calcium thing, though. And Little Nugs has a question here. One thing, I probably learned this from you, Tad, but Mulder's chart. It shows kind of the antagonisms and, other word, things that work together well in the nutrient world. So, reviewing the Mulder's chart, does calcium push potassium uptake? Does calcium make potassium more easily absorbed by the plant, or does it block it out?
I can't answer that directly because I've never thought of it that way. The way I've always approached it is that there's certain physiological plant functions that we want potassium for and certain ones that we want calcium for. And we want to maintain those levels at luxury or sufficiency throughout the entire life of the plant. Now, if you get too much calcium or too much potassium, you can have some level of antagonism because they're both cations, or they can push your pH into ranges that you don't necessarily want because they may not be optimal for the plant. But in general, if we have, our goal with all of this is to keep the minerals in the proper balance, or sufficiency first and then balance, to allow the plants to really have access to them. It is how I've always approached it. Now, if we're talking mineral salts, there's probably more dynamics happening there that I think people need to pay attention to because your nutrients are so much faster acting. Here we have the buffer of the microbes and the plant working together. And so we just put it into the soil and kind of let the plant sort it out versus trying to always like tinker and get the exact amount for the plant through mineral salts, I guess.
Okay. That's, again, multiple ways to do it. So I appreciate you kind of touching on both. I know we kind of focus on the organic stuff here. We got a lot of organic growers, but there's a lot of other growers who do it other ways too. And we're both of the mindset that, hey, just grow. Just grow.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so there are some follow-up questions here. I'm trying to see if they connect or if it's the same. It is from the same person, Steve. The question, is there a way to calculate or make a close estimate of carbon to nitrogen ratios from data on a soil test? And this other part of that was, is there a way to calculate carbon to nitrogen ratios using data in the soil test? He had his compost tested just as a soil, hoping to get a rough idea of carbon and nitrogen.
Not that I know of. Now, you could look at it. So the reason we want to know your C to N ratio a lot of times with compost is it tells us how stable that compost is, if the nutrients are cycled, if they're going to be plant available when you go to use that compost. Probably if you have high levels of ammonium, that might be a clue that your compost source was not fully finished or may have had not an suboptimal, C to N ratio. Otherwise, yeah, unfortunately, the way it's set up right now, you have to get a compost test and a soil test to get all of the metrics that you really want. The other way to do it is there are websites, compost websites, where you can put in all your inputs, and then it will give you a rough calculation of C to N ratio. Like I used this much brown leaves, this much branches, this much grass clippings, and you can choose from those, and it'll combine all the C to N ratios and give you an overall C to N ratio of your compost. So yeah, those are really the only answers I have for that.
Okay. And I'm useless on that answer. I can tell you the carbon in, no, I won't even do that. I was going to make a smart remark, but nope, I'm not that smart. But I do know some things about some things, and good to see Unlucky Maiko in here. He's a person who has tested many things for me in the past, a gig grower himself, and I think I can handle this question. He says, when you breed a line, can you breed for higher female to male ratios as a trait to produce more females or more male offspring? To my knowledge, no. I do not know that there is a way to positively or negatively impact one or the other in preference of the other. You can always make feminized seeds, but no, I don't think that there is a way where you can prioritize the ratio of male to females in there. So I'll be looking at chat if anybody knows anything, but based off of my knowledge of how that works, no, there wouldn't be. And that would be great, because this current round of testing right now, my buddy, we'll call him BC, he is like 6 for 6 males so far on on the mean muffin that we're testing. And I've been able to sex 5 of my 6 mean muffins, and I've got 5 for 5 females. So who knows? Maybe I just sent all the male seeds to him. But yeah, it'd be great if we could figure out how to do that, because I'd love to give people an even ratio, but it is kind of what it is there. Oh, Tad, you dealt with this recently, and maybe is this one of the reasons why you were resetting? But I think I remember hearing you talk about this.
Yeah, I had it last cycle, unfortunately, which some people are adding these things to their grow rooms based on a certain influencer in the living soil community, which I think is wild because he sells them. But yeah, we don't necessarily want them in our indoor grows. They are shredders and decomposers of organic matter, but when they run out, they'll start eating your plants. They'll start girdling your stems. And I've always had a little bit in my, I'll see 1 or 2 in my room in my soil. And I thought, okay, that's just part of the, normal healthy food web. And then the last cycle, not the one I'm on right now, they just exploded. And people have told me this over a lot of people. And usually the people, by the time they reach out to me, they're like pulling their hair out because it's so frustrating. And I got a taste of that last cycle. It sucks. They are very persistent creatures. They breed like crazy.
Yeah.
You're in for a bit of a battle. There's no good biocontrols or pesticides that will deal with them. I think they fall into the crustacean family. They're really unique creatures. So what you can do is there's a few options. You can mass trap them, which is to so sometimes I would leave a leaf, or I'd leave a piece of fruit or something in a corner, and then I would come back a few hours later or the next day and pull that out, and maybe even pull the soil underneath it out, because as soon as they see you coming, they'll like burrow back into the soil too. They're little punks. So that's one option. You can also use sticky traps. I have a couple here. They're stuck to each other because I was just with Suzanne looking at my fungus gnats.
Okay.
But they make ones like this, but they have a hole right here that goes around, like, I can't remember the name of them. They're called catch cards, I think, but they're made by Catchmaster. And so you could put those around the stalk of the plant, or people will wrap sticky tape so they can't crawl up. Because the issue is really, as I've seen it, is they'll start to crawl up the stalk because they're trying to get to the leaves. They'll eat the stalk. Um, they're awful. So you could maybe use some tree banding glue, anything you can create around the base of the plant to keep them from eating the plant. Now, once the plant gets big enough, it's not as much of an issue. But when they're younger, it's really frustrating. I did find that was the grow I did bottomless pots versus planting directly into the soil, and the ones that had the bottomless pots had less damage from the roly polies or the isopods. So that was a good option for me as well, just getting them up so they didn't seem to want to crawl up the fabric pots to get up there too. Some people I see are saying, feed them, essentially have a mulch layer or other food for them and manage them that way. I chose not to go that route because I didn't want more of them. And my goal was to eventually get the populations down low enough to where they're not an issue. These guys can survive for like years. They're like cockroaches. They're amazing creatures. So, I kept working to try and lower populations through, you could vacuum them, you can pinch them, you can mass trap them. Try not to, they pop when you squeeze them. It's really gross.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Murderer.
I know.
Murderer. This is very anti tie-dye long hair hippie organic growing, Tad.
That's fair. Hey, what are you doing with all those spider bites you were telling me about? You making peace and love with them?
I'm spraying them with oil so they can be like nice and tan underneath the grow light, but for some reason the oil suffocates them and kills them all. So I'm just trying to help. Trying to help.
That's awesome. Yeah. So that's a tough one, I guess. You can reach out. I can give you some more strategies, but those are a lot of the good ways to kind of battle them in my experience.
Yeah, that's because again, the explosion of the population, it happens fast. And again, if you're feeding them and just kind of wishing they would go away, I have never met a pest in my garden that will just go away. So something has to happen here. Real quick question, dude. Oh, Felipe, thank you for growing out the no joke. I would love to see some of your pictures, and I think I have an email sitting in my inbox right now that I need to respond to. So yes, baseball-sized nugs. Heck yeah, dude. I can't wait to see that. I've been getting some really awesome pictures lately of a lot of them as cool ice and a lot of harvest pictures from outdoor growers this year. Yeah, please send it. I will respond to that email. You found a good place to get a hold of me. So that works out, dude. Thank you for growing those. Holy Toledo's got a question for us here. Says, is there a self-watering system that works for living soil? I use auto pots regularly. I've had good success with them. I'm actually using the Tray to Grow right now with a bunch of the Westport Blend soil in 1 gallon containers. Working great for me. My only thing with auto pots is once your root system first you have to top water until the root system can kind of reach towards the bottom. You turn the system on, it works great. But once the root system really populates the bottom of those pots, I tend to turn the system off for 2 or 3 days at a time just to kind of give it a little bit of a dry back versus consistently being inundated with water. So that's kind of my trick to auto pots, the self-watering, and that will probably also apply to, I know, like Spider Farmer, AC Infinity, probably even Mars Hydro. I know Vivo Sun, they're all doing the self-wicking watering bases lately. And so my assumption would be that would kind of apply what I just said to them as well. But there's another system out there, Tad, and I've seen you kind of use this and talk with people, but it's called Blue Mott. Is that something that you tend to see preferred in larger installs versus others? Or is there a universal, this is how we do it when it comes to self-watering?
People do use it commercially. I like to top water. There's nothing wrong with sub-irrigated planters. I just personally prefer top watering. But yeah, the blue mats work really well. I'm going to actually set them up in my grow this cycle. I didn't do them last cycle because my water has to go outside from my hose line outside the building, and it would have froze. So my last cycle was in the winter. This cycle, I'm hoping to get in before it freezes. And so I'll be able to set up the blue mats, or I'll have to run like a heated hose line. I don't know. I haven't figured it out, but yeah, I'll be showing that in my grow this next cycle on Instagram and YouTube. So,
Cool.
yeah. Hey, I had a question for you. How did this guy get a little question to come up next to his comment? Tie sticks. Do you see that?
Tie sticks. Way to go, Ty. I don't know. Ty is awesome.
How do you do that? You should probably answer that question too. But
let's see. I've got to keep scrolling. I'll find it, but that would be cool if they're doing little icons now. Sometimes the AI is reading. Yeah. Oh, wow. I see it. Let's just put it up.
okay.
Well, just because I saw it. Thanks for mentioning that. That'll probably help me as I scan through things. It's actually pulling out what is a question and what not. I've been out of the loop for a bit. Is the soil or amendments available for shipping yet? Been holding out on giving it a go. You are in luck, Ty. So yes, nutrient pack from KIS Organics and the Bloom Booster pack have been available on the KIS Organics website. They are still available there. You've seen me using these for years. The Westport Blend soil, though, we sold out of the first batch. We've been out for a couple of weeks, but the good news is coming back, and it's already back, and it just needs to cool. Or are we going to have some more of that on the site soon?
I think we're bagging it this week if we haven't already done so. So, yeah, I probably just need to reach out to Andrew about putting it back in stock. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Westport Blend soil, just the kisorganics.com. And again, you guys can go there and find the nutrient packs. You can find the bloom boosters and a whole bunch of other amendments. That's where I just picked up my Epi Shield to deal with the dang spider mites that Ted just mentioned. So it's been going good. I think I'm gone with that, but you guys will see a video about that here shortly.
The Westport Blend is the only soil that ships with bloom booster sample too right now.
That's right.
We should probably do that with our other soils, but that one specifically, you get some bloom booster. So if you are growing it like Chad, you don't have to buy anything else because the bloom booster comes with it. And then I just sent South a bunch of these posters from our conference. I don't know if you can see it. I'll hold it up.
That's sweet.
Here.
Yeah.
So Suzanne took all of these photos, and these are what the insects look like on a sticky card. And they make a poster, but the poster is hard to ship to people. But now they have these 8x1/2x11 cards. And so we can ship these. So I can throw these in with anyone orders the Westport soil or something else, we can throw these in there really affordably now. It's awesome. Yeah, they're from Catchmaster, who makes, I think, the best sticky cards on the market.
That would be rad if anybody is watching the show today, or on the replay. When you place your order in the comment section, just please type Catchmaster poster, and they'll try to get that tossed in.
I'll have to let Andrew know, but yeah.
Yes, we'll have to let Andrew know. But yeah, shipping posters, ridiculous. I'm trying to find a better way because I have Twin Peaks banners. People have asked for them. It is $18.50 to ship this thing if I go to the post office, which is ridiculous. Dude, it's cheaper than the damn poster, guys. And like $18.50, I'm not making money on that. So $18.50 for shipping. I'm trying to figure out a better way, but I'm glad, I guess, to summarize my point, I'm glad that you have a flat 8.5x11 poster, because that ships for 50 cents, not $18.50.
Well, and if you're getting soil, we can just fit it right in the bag with the soil because it's a thicker paper. So it's great because seeing what these things look like I can literally pull up my they're sticky. They're sticking to things. My sticky card here, and look on here and be like, oh yeah, that's a fungus gnat. But today I got schooled by Suzanne on so many things related to thrips and fungus gnats and insects in general. It was a good, humbling reminder of how little I know on the IPM side, and how much more there's always to learn. Like it was great. So Yeah, I sent her
That's
some pictures and she was identifying things for me. In fact, I can probably pull up that photo of the thrips because she even said it looked funny.
right, because it's not a Western flower thrip anymore, which is a great example of once we actually finally learn and get this knowledge into our head, in that time it's taken us to do that, it's changed already. So things are constantly moving. And yes, the Western flower thrip versus, I think, what is it, onion thrip? You have to use a particular type of microscope. You have to look at like the hair on the legs or some crazy thing that we're not able to do at home to really determine which it is.
Is
But
it going to share my
hopefully,
screen or here we go?
the thrip
All
is.
right.
Let's
There
see
it is.
here.
So that's a picture I took the other day.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yep.
then so one pointer I can say is they're always called thrips. Even if they're singular, they're still plural.
Okay.
Doesn't matter to people like you and me, but if you're talking to Suzanne, you always want to say thrips because it's important
Yes.
to use the right nomenclature.
Yes.
She's like, there's something about this butt that looks funny. It's definitely not Western flower. It might not be onion. It might be, and I blacked out when she told me. But basically, she said it's very hard to identify at this stage. And she's like, do you have an adult? And I go, I thought this was an adult. It was huge and it was crawling around on the leaf. And she's like, no, did it have wings? And I'm like, I didn't see any with wings. And that's why we were looking at my sticky cards. But then she was saying certain echinothrips aren't going to show up on the sticky cards because they don't get caught by them. And so we went down this whole rabbit hole of her lecturing me on all the things I don't know. But it was really good because I learned a lot. And as I put out these beneficials, because I was calling her because I got some clones in that have a ton of fun. They came in with a ton of fungus gnats and a ton of thrips. So
who sent you clones with a ton of fungus gnats and a ton of thrips?
I'm not going to out someone. That's horrible. But they're cuts of Rick James, so it's a good cut. But this is the story that every grower has told, where you get a cut you really want, and you bring it in, and you get something. And she's like, well, call me back when you get hemp russet next time or whatever. And I'm like, you're right. I shouldn't have done this, but I also have one room that I can shut down at any point in time. And I don't have to be growing in. So like, if I really do get something horrible, I'll just shut down for a while. But yeah, so with the thrips and the fungus gnats, I should have, and the plants came in. Let me see if I have a picture of my room right now. The plants came in bigger than I expected, which meant I didn't really want to dunk them.
Right.
Because they were so big. It just, and I was busy at the time. I'm giving you excuses for why I didn't handle this the way I should have. I should have dipped them at the time, and I should have quarantined them, but I didn't have a quarantine space. And so I just brought them into the room, and then I put up some sticky cards and kind of monitored. And then I saw that I was getting, there was some of that like sheen, that shiny damage that is so unique to thrips. Here's the plants. Is it showing up?
Yep.
Okay. So here's the plants in the room. I had 13 plants because I'm limited to 15 with the medical laws. And so I sprayed them with the EpiShield, but I just had I had some already for my house plants and just like a little handheld sprayer. I don't think I got very good coverage because I came back a few days later and noticed there were thrips cruising around everywhere on the leaf surface. Just with the naked eye, I could see them. And so then I was like, okay, I got to up my game. And so then I got out the Suff oil, which is the Monterey horticultural oil, same product. And I put it in a backpack sprayer, mixed it up to the recommended rate, threw on some PPE, and went and like really sprayed them down. And I did that twice, 2 days apart. And that really knocked them back. So I don't think it was the EpiShield's fault. I think it was the fact that I used a better backpack sprayer the second time and got much better coverage. The follow-up to that was then I was talking to Suzanne today, and she's like, well, when did you last spray EpiShield? And I was like, oh, it was probably a week ago. And she's like, well, we don't know the the rates of when we can come into the room with beneficials with EpiShield. That research has not been done yet, but you're probably fine a week later. But that was something I hadn't thought of. And then she's also like, you dated your sticky cards, right? For monitoring purposes when you put them up. And I was like, no, I was using it for mass trapping, like an excuse. But these are all things that like, I know better. She's told me this. I've learned these things and I still did not do them. So yeah,
it kind of shows. It's like, I've got some fun footage of thrips and stuff here too. It's a video, but
yeah.
I can't figure out how to share my screen right now on this other computer. So all to waste. Never mind.
So anyway, I have I ordered Swirsky, Aureus, and SF nematodes to deal with this. And she's like, "Why'd you get Swirsky?" And I was like, "I don't know. I just told Brandon to order. I'm gonna out Brandon. I told him to order something for him." He's like, "Oh yeah." She's like, BioBee and Copert tend to push Swirsky because they used to manufacture it, but really, you could have just used Cucumaris in an indoor grow. It's cheaper. It would work just as well. So yeah, so I didn't need to buy Swirsky, but Swirsky works really, really well too. So it wasn't like I bought the wrong thing. It was just I could have maybe saved a couple dollars, but really it's the shipping is the big cost here. And then with the Aureus, she's saying with the Swirsky, rather than just sprinkling the carrier out all over the plant, I want to put them in these little, actually, she's like, "Did you order the release boxes?" And I was like, "No." And then I got lectured for not ordering the release boxes. So she had me make these little cones, and I'm going to stick each one of these at the base of the plant. This is just like a little paper cone. Okay. I made this out of, printer paper, and I'm going to put the Swirsky into here and then put them at the base of the plant. And then that's going to be my release for the Swirsky. And then for the Aureus, she's like, which is the, I believe it's the minute pirate bug is the other name for Aureus. They, or maybe that's road beetles. I'm getting them all confused. Anyway, she said they will bite you. And she gets giant welts. And then she's like, so when you release them, turn down your lights, first of all, because they will just fly up into the lights and die. So you want to have your lights turned down. And ideally, she said, put like newspaper or something up above the canopy and then release them onto that rather than releasing the carrier directly onto the plant itself. Because she said these carriers, while they're inert or sterile at the time, they do contain organic matter. And so there's a chance of fungal growth on them over time. And we obviously don't want that on our canopy. You can see I'm in veg, so it's probably not a huge risk to release them on there, but this was the solution, was to turn down the lights and release the Aureus just into the room, and they'll fly around. They'll take care of themselves. I don't need to worry as much about putting them at the base of each plant. So, yeah, I'm about to go do that as soon as we get off this call. But then it's like, okay, can I use chlorinated water with the nematodes? Because you read online that you can't. She said, no, that should be just fine. I don't need to worry about that. Make sure that the nematodes in the water are at similar temperatures when I go to release them. Water the plants first, because now they're in the beds, if they need water, and then just water the nematodes in over the top. And then she also said, don't put out all the nematodes because I have way too much. Split them up and put some elsewhere around my house, like with my house plants and things.
So. One thing I'm curious about too that you mentioned there, especially with the smaller plants, is you mentioned the backpack sprayer, and I have one of those. I think it's 1/2 gallon or 1 gallon motorized sprayer bottles that I could do. For my small tent and for my small plants, again, it's harder for me to use the larger sprayer. It's just too much volume too fast. I almost found that I was able to get better coverage using just the squirt bottle. And by coverage, I mean the underside of the leaves. Because if it's small enough, if it's in a bed, you can't do this. But if it's in a small enough container, you pick it up, kind of tilt it, and you can get your spray on. But when I have that motorized big one, I've just released, a cup of water on the back of my wall trying to get this. I always finished, and I'd have standing water of Lost Coast Therapy or EpiShield in the bottom of my tent. So I've kind of myself have gone away from that, the overpowered one. to the individual, more localized, more targeted type of spray bottle. So I just want to put that one out there too, because I bought the bigger thing thinking like, dude, it's going to dominate. It's going to be great. I'm going to get maximum coverage.
Yeah. Yeah.
But for my smaller plants in the smaller 10, I'm like, you know what? Going back to that hand pump one is probably a little bit more effective for getting the right coverage for me. So I don't know if you've experienced that or have an opinion, because yeah, you said the backpack sprayer, and I'm like, man, I thought that'd be cool, but it just made a mess.
Yeah, I think the challenge there is getting a small enough droplet size to get good coverage, surface area coverage on the leaf. I don't think the little spray bottle that I had, the cheapo Home Depot $5
Right.
spray bottle, was giving me good coverage. I think that's the challenge. But I have not gone down that rabbit hole. All I can tell you is that if you do go with a sprayer, the cream of the crop is the Dram BP. I think it's the BP4 sprayer. They make a few different horticultural sprayers, and they really have the best ones on the market. I have a Greenworks one because I have all this Greenworks stuff, and I may eventually get a Dram one, but it's just because I had it. I will say I see someone posted about paint sprayers. From what I've heard from talking to Dram and other people, is that those don't have optimal droplet sizes, and those you may not get as good of coverage with them as you would with a horticulturally designed sprayer. So
Question about droplet size though, because droplet size for me, I think of availability to the plant. So like a foliar feeding, some Epsom salt or whatever, where it needs to be absorbed into the plant tissue. But when we're really talking about like oils and trying to just cover the plant, wouldn't maybe not necessarily better, but would a larger drop size be just as effective? Because it would probably coat just the same.
I don't think it does. I think it actually coats less. But what we should get, you know what we should do next month? Remind me. I'll get someone from Dram to maybe come on and answer our sprayer questions, because I don't want to speak out of turn and give bad advice on this, because I know it makes a difference. Like I see people talking about foggers, and I know foggers, I think they are really cool. I know they don't necessarily work for microbial, or atomizers don't work for microbials. So I would rather have someone come in here that can really speak to that more than me. I'm not necessarily an IPM expert or sprayer expert. So
well, I appreciate that. And I think people listening and watching can appreciate that too. I've always been the type of person, please don't BS me. If you don't know the answer, just say, this is what I think. I don't really know, but this is where I would look. And you've completely just walked through that cycle for this. So it's important for people watching too. They already know from watching me, I don't know everything, and I'm happy to admit it. But it's important. You should always be cautious of a person who has an answer for everything. So
one thing I learned that I want to throw out there, Chad, is because I heard a gentleman from Dram who's really knowledgeable on this speak at our conference, and he said that soaking the plant to runoff actually gives you worse coverage than a proper misting of the plant.
Oh, wow.
And I thought about that. I was like, okay, that sounds good. And then I went to use my backpack sprayer, and I felt like the only way I got any decent coverage was by soaking the plant to where it literally was dripping off the plant, because I felt like I couldn't get all the places.
Yeah.
So that was a follow-up question I had for him that I haven't gotten to ask him yet on that topic. But yeah, I would like to, let's do it. I think there's enough interest in spray technology and understanding water tension and surface area and nozzles and pressures that let's do it next time. I think that'd be fun.
Yeah, it would be fun. It's, it's something that I'm personally dealing with right now, something you're dealing with, and a lot of other people deal with as well. So yeah, that'd be fun to get some of those definitive answers from someone, again, who specializes. That's their niche. This is what they eat and breathe all day. So yeah, we'll go directly to the source there. That'd be fun. Yeah. Well, I mean, we've got about 5 minutes left here.
Wow.
There's some, I know this has been a really awesome episode full of good questions, but I want to actually, I'm going to put up two more questions here. I could rapid fire this, and then I want to hear about what's going on in your garden here real quick before we wrap it up, or anything else you want to add, Tad. But this question I could take says, question, the smallest pot size you could keep mother plants in. Subjective, how long are you keeping your mother plants? Generically, I would say like 5 to 7, probably leaning towards the 7 if you can. If you're keeping it any longer than, 4, 5, 6 months, go larger. Generically speaking, 1 gallon for every month past 2 months. Actually, no, that's horrible. Don't use that. That doesn't stack up. So yeah, go with the 7-gallon, man. Go with the 7-gallon. Usually people keep moms for maybe 4 to 5 months. You're constantly taking clones. You're constantly reinvigorating them. It's not a scenario where you're keeping them for years on end. So hopefully that gives you a little guidance there with that horrible example I tossed out. But
I'm a big fan of re-cloning every cycle rather than keeping
that's
them
what I
home
do.
for a really long time. Yeah,
That's
and then
what
keep your healthiest plants. Yeah. So
Yes.
take extras and then keep your healthiest as your mother, and then
Always.
do it again. Yeah.
Yep. Actually,
I saw a question
that's
I wanted
exactly
to
what I
do too.
Cool.
But the tackle. Oh, that's the same one. Did you have another question?
Oh, there was, do you guys work with Amazon to ship soil? I really want to buy 5 bags of the Chad Westport Blend, just don't want to pay triple for shipping. So Amazon, how would that even work? Is that possible?
Yeah, I've looked into it. The problem is, and they take so much of the money to use their program that by the time you're left, yeah, the shipping's free, but that's it didn't work out. So yeah, I would like to figure out a way to lower the shipping, and we're working on that right now. So we're actively working. In fact, this question by Pheno Dino was the one I was looking at up here. He also figured out that question mark thing.
I will try to find that here from Mr.
Basically, it's what are the ramifications of shipping bags of soil across the country as far as your carbon footprint? Well, that's a good question. It's higher. Is it worth it? It would be more sustainable to source local and make your own. That's why we created our nutrient pack, so you could do that. That was the goal with that product initially. We found other use cases for the nutrient pack since then. And for some people, they either are, maybe they have a disability, or they can't mix soil, or they can't source everything. It may be a one-time investment if you reuse the soil, or if you're a large facility and you can't, you literally just physically can't mix that much soil effectively or homogeneously. Those are the cases where I think it makes sense. But you're absolutely right. It is a huge carbon footprint. I hope that's offset by the fact that you're reusing your media versus, the more traditional mineral salts, toss your media, start over sort of an approach. But yeah, I think that's a really valid question. And I think it's a nuanced answer that's worth talking about.
Absolutely. There's, it always reminds me of the person, well, not the same, but reminds me of the person who doesn't eat meat, but they're wearing leather shoes. It's like, come on. Don't get religious on me here.
Yeah. That was the
yeah.
whole blood and bone conversation with Jeremy recently that we had. So
Yeah, well, not kind of a one-way conversation there. Hopefully it picks up. I saw you go up on Pigeons 420 show.
Yeah, that was fun.
Conversation. Yeah. It's good.
I saw
good
you
to reach out.
Yeah, there's some fun people on YouTube. I definitely enjoy the opportunity to have a conversation around it.
Yeah. Well, Tad, before we go, man, what do people have to look forward to? What is next for KIS Organics, and what is next for you?
Yeah, so we are working on actively formulating an East Coast or Midwest blend so we can reduce shipping costs. That process just takes a while to find the right partner on that, and then the formulation to get a soil that is very high in fertility, low in heavy metals, the right physical and biological properties. It just takes time. So it is something that we're actively working on, and as soon as we have it, we'll be sure to announce it. Thanks for tuning into that. We did release a soil in Australia with KIS Organics, Matt Barnes down there. 2 years went into that project. And so we now have a soil mix in Canada through Black Swallow and one in Australia through KIS Organics. And that's probably the most exciting stuff at the moment. Outside the day-to-day, I'm setting up a new grow, and I'm about to do, I don't know if you can see behind me here, that's an under canopy light from Bios Lighting right there.
Yep.
So I'm going to shoot an unboxing video, and I'm going to hook that up. And so this next grow, I'm going to do a comparison between strict top lighting versus top lighting and under canopy, hitting the same target PPF levels on both sides. Because I just got back from the Fluence Photo X Summit, which is like a bunch of researchers, really smart people from around the world get to come there and talk about photobiology, how light impacts plant growth, as well as they released, like this company discovered a new marker for genetic marker for powdery mildew. Oh, that's awesome. And a bunch of other stuff. But some of the things around red light, I'm about to release a podcast, hopefully with Dave Hawley from Fluence. He's their chief research scientist, talking about some of the new research around red light that's really interesting. But they were seeing basically just to cut to the chase, with under canopy lighting, you're not necessarily going to get more yield unless you're adding more light. 1% more light, approximately 1% more yield is the general equation, and he dives into why that happens. But if we keep the same light levels but give some of it from below and some of it from above, what we can do is get a higher quantity of A quality buds out of there versus the typical ratios that we get of like A to B buds to C buds kind of thing. So that's what I'm gonna test and see, what that looks like in my grow. And I think that's going to be exciting data to show, because it might be worth it for a home grower. Because if you're not, I'm electrically limited, so I can't just add another 300 watts into my grow. But if I could, then I think that's where it makes a lot of sense on the yield side, because then you can actually expect potentially a 20 to 30% greater yield from adding under canopy lighting into your setup.
It'll be interesting. I recently put out a video about under canopy lighting, my thoughts on it. Dr. David Hawley is one of the research papers that I quoted in there. He seems to be his work from 2018 when he was at the, I think it was University of Ontario, or in that direction in Canada.
He was in Canada.
He published kind of the paper that seems to be referenced by other studies and other people talking about it. And then conveniently, I'm like, oh, he works over for this lighting company now. That's convenient. But you want someone who knows their stuff, and that seems to be his specialty. So I'm going to look forward to that. I'd love to hear more about what he's been working on, because he's with a company with a big budget. So we'll find out.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, it's exciting stuff.
Yeah. Well, cool. Everybody, kisorganics.com. That is where you could go to pick up your amendments, your soils. We talked about the nutrient pack, the bloom booster, which I use, and then also the Westport Blend soil. KISorganics.com is where to pick that all up. ChadWestport.com. That's where you can find my gear and my merch. Some people have been posting about the no joke in here. University of Ontario just made me laugh. Yeah, I know. It's like, it starts with a G, like Gulep or something. I can't pronounce it.
Now that you say it, I think it's the University of Guelph, or Guelph University. Okay. I don't know which order they say it in, but I'm pretty sure that was it. Now that you mentioned it. Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. Every Tuesday, 2 p.m., KIS Organics YouTube channel. Second Tuesday of every month, he brings a show over to us here on the Chad Westport YouTube channel. Any last places you want them to find you, Tad, before we go?
Nope. Other than if you're not aware, Chad and I did a side project called Dope History. We did one season. If we could ever get enough people interested in it, I'd love to do a season 2, because a lot of the OGs that people are dying, sadly, and some people have already passed away, and some of those stories are already gone. But man, there's some cool narratives on there. If you're ever just sitting around with a joint and want to hear the lives of some people that really transformed our industry, Dope History. There's no longer the website. but we still have the podcast on Spotify, YouTube. I think all those channels. I don't know if it's on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, places like that. You should still be able to check it out.
Yeah, I'll pull up the screen here because I've been thinking about this recently. I actually reached out to someone over in the Netherlands, um, because, two people in particular, are having, like, health problems. So there's, Soma, who is responsible for a lot of genetics. He is an institution in Amsterdam, but Soma, um, has been having some health issues lately, and also Mila Jansen, the hash queen. I've had
Oh no.
the honor and privilege of spending time with them while I've been in Amsterdam and have enjoyed their company. I've actually done a few interviews with Mila as well, but Soma, I just sent him an email the other day, be like, "Hey, man, I'd really love to get together and record the story." Just again, some of these, So the introduction here, the first episode we had was Madame Cannoli, remembering Frenchie. Frenchie, right after he passed away, is when you did this interview.
I was talking to Frenchie just prior to his passing too, and I was about this, and then tragically
Wow.
we lost him. So yeah, and there's other people that we've interviewed that I have raw footage of that we haven't even released. So yeah, Eddie Lepp, that was one I did
He's not
years
with us
ago.
anymore. Yeah, he's not with us anymore.
Yeah.
Tom Alexander, Ed Wolf, Jorge, Tommy Chong. So yeah, guys, check out it's in the playlist. If you go to chadwestport.com, or no, just Chad Westport YouTube channel, click on playlists and you'll see dope history in there. So yeah, it'd be great to get back to these if for some reason, people just didn't bite on this. It was weird, but it was fun, and I'm proud of what we created because it's timeless stories of important people. So that'll
Yeah.
that'll
And
never
there's a
change.
lot of people out there still that we haven't interviewed that would be really
Yeah.
fun to do. So it's just a lot of work. Yeah. Let's talk about it. We can get enough interest. I would love to get that going again too. That was a fun project.
Yeah. Well, guys, thank you for hanging out today. Thank you for bringing your questions. You made this one go by really fast. That was awesome. We will see you guys next Tuesday, 2 p.m. over on the KIS Organics YouTube channel. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you next time.